This is The Baseline, discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. Welcome, everybody. You are tuned to The Baseline. Callie Warrenshaw discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. And listen, we'll call this like it's a special episode, but it really ain't special, man, because if y'all been following the fam, man, you know what I'm saying? This is just like, you know what I'm saying, regenerating the greatness. You know what I'm saying? Just bringing us back to a time where the baseline had elevated to another level of greatness, and we doing it again. And it's just always exciting to be able to have great commentary conversations with none other than the fam. You know what I'm saying? The original OGs have been doing it. My man, Mr. Warrenshaw, and our special guest, our man, Mr. Jabari Davis, you know what I'm saying, who's clearly rocking it right quite nicely. You know what I'm saying? So obviously everybody, like, there's no guessing on what we're going to be discussing through the course of this show. Well, what's good, my brother, Mr. Shaw? How you feeling, man?
I'm doing good, man. But yeah, we got to pop right into this here. Excited to have our brother back in the situation here. It's homecoming on the baseline here for the man, JD. JD, what's popping, family?
Man, when I got that text early in the morning, I'll admit, remember I'm out here, so I got that text. I said, "Damn, it's early." Hell yes, hell yes. Because I'm gonna be honest. Look, I love going on different shows. I love, I've been doing this for a while. Y'all have been doing this, like forever. But it absolutely feels like home when I make it here. So I appreciate the invitation. I appreciate each of y'all grace.
Absolutely, man. Listen, we appreciate you as well too. I do have a quick question for you, Jay. Yep. You knew you were jumping on this. How come I don't see the cigar in tote with the cap, man? I figure, you know what I'm saying? I figure you would have gone all full tilt in celebration of the Lakers' achievement, but maybe humbling us a little bit and not making it all about the JD experience.
Okay, so the answer to that question is, while yes, I'm going to celebrate along the way and appreciate this for what it wasn't the title. You know what I mean? If this was the title, I would have been right here. I might have had a blunt with it. It might have been a little bit of this, might have been a little bit of that. But for this, I think going with the 2009, NBA title with the Mamba print, I think that's good enough.
I'm not even going to get into it. Go ahead.
Well, listen, obviously this week's episode for our listeners is going to be about the in-season tournament and the two teams that essentially played for the inaugural NBA Cup, the outcome, and what our expectations are going to be. So this is going to be an excellent episode, and really none better than to have our special guest, our man, our brother, you know what I'm saying, from another mother, our man Jabari Davis, jumping on the show. So as always, I encourage you guys, if you want to catch us and catch more about what we're doing, be sure to get my man Shaw, Shaw Sports NBA, or get at me at GameFace Lee. Also, as well, too, please follow our man Jabari. You know what I'm saying? He always is doing big things everywhere he goes. So catch him at Jabari Davis NBA. And the show's Twitter handle at NBA Baseline. So down with the 19 Media Group, www.19mediagroup.com, and our show website, www.nbabaseline.com. So let's get right into it, man. Like, I don't even want to waste any time. The inaugural cup took place. Clearly this was the game of the weekend, and ultimately it culminated to what we expected between the Pacers and the Lakers. If people have been watching how both of these teams essentially played, both teams came out of their groups undefeated, and essentially came down to the fourth quarter where it took literally a masterpiece of performance from, you know what I'm saying, Anthony Davis, a masterpiece performance from LeBron James, and collectively the Los Angeles Lakers go on to win. So I'm going to start with you, Jabari. First, give me your overall impressions of what you thought about the in-season tournament. I want you to give me a grade as well, too. A, B, C, D, and F. What were your overall impressions of the in-season tournament collectively?
So, I'm going to be honest about it. When they first announced this, I was actually right alongside, probably both of y'all, and definitely leaning more even towards, your opinion on it, Cal. I was like, what is this? Why? What's the purpose? And straightforward, I'm glad I was wrong. Because like multiple things can be true in terms of the actual rollout and how the awareness and understanding of it. I would say they could have done a little bit better I would have appreciated that. But if we're being honest about it, most of us weren't paying attention to when they were breaking it down, like, ahead of the season. So I'll say this. For the longest time, we all complained, and we all did this. We all complained about basketball in November, October, late October, November, even December. Didn't matter. Nobody cared. It was like, okay, if you get some wins early, that's great, but let's see what you're doing later on. And while that is still important, it's obviously it's going to be important to see how teams continue to develop. We got good basketball, and we got like focused basketball in November and December. Like I was all team, like, don't even start the season until like Christmas Day, like not 3 years ago. And again, while none of us are going to feel the impact of the 500,000 or any of the extra money or anything like that, we got meaningful basketball that players absolutely cared about and absolutely got involved and absolutely wanted to win. And honestly, at a time when normally we're only talking about the NFL, and those of us that are NBA fanatics are trying to scrap and claw and get people to pay attention to the NBA, but we have that now. So for me, I give it an A all around because of what it ultimately was. Initially, I would have, like, if had the tournament not been so exciting, I probably would have given it like a B, you know what I mean? Maybe even a B minus. But given how it turned out, and no, this is not just because my Lakers won, but because I was on the timeline last week saying, hey man, this is fun. This is a hell of a lot of fun. But given how it turned out, I would honestly give it an A.
All right. Shaw, where are you with this?
So I remember, being in Las Vegas at Summer League when the rollout actually happened. Didn't make it over to Mandalay Bay, where they did that part of it as the activations were split up between the games and some of that stuff. And I remember like, maybe I should have went. Nah, F it, I'm here good watching whatever BS Summer League game I was watching, as opposed to getting that rollout. So I just read the tweets and so forth, and obviously met with a lot of skepticism myself. But, as I said, it was kind of indifferent. I was like, well, I know how Silver thinks in terms of he's been wanting this for a while and wanting the league to kind of differentiate itself to some degree. I think JD's point about potentially here, even integrating and capturing some of that NFL crowd, at least just for the audience side of it, I think that has worked out pretty well. The way they scheduled games, especially towards the end, worked out well to some degree. I think there's some teams like, all right, well, they ended up with a week off, or kind of some inconsistency with how the schedule made, and Silver even addressed that moving forward. So overall, though, I would have to say I'd give it probably a B plus, and maybe I'm a little salty because the Celtics did not do as well. But I, like them, did not start to care about it as much until you realize kind of like what was going on. And I think that's a lot of us from a fan's perspective, even media perspective. I was doing a podcast with Gary on the Celtics, and he was like, yeah, I don't really know. What group were they in again? So there was just so many things that we were halfway paying attention to. But then as it got toward the latter stages, you start to realize, nah, this is kind of tight. And I will say from my last point on it, that I really enjoy the aspect of how it ended. It gave everybody more or less a chance. And anybody like the Pacers who did take it seriously from rip, and the Lakers who took it seriously from rip based on LeBron. And we'll get into that later on into the show. But I think you'll see that start to cascade now moving into future seasons, right? And for us as Celtics fans, I can tell you, Tatum and them didn't care till they lost to Indiana. they were like, shit, we really wanted to go to Vegas and wanted a chance. And it took that kind of that humbling experience to realize, hey, you need to be on board from the very, very beginning. So I give it a B plus overall.
All right. So I'm going to be real quick with this. Overall winners. I think the Indiana Pacers were the overall winners, even though the Los Angeles Lakers wound up getting the NBA Cup. I think the Lakers, however, saved the NBA inaugural season, preferably LeBron James, because, and I think we were talking about this off the air about, and our man Jabari had alluded to this, that if LeBron James is vested in something, LeBron James actually creates the storyline. He creates the narrative about the importance of what the NBA's focus and what they are doing. Even though this is an effort, an initiative by Adam Silver and his people, if LeBron James ain't in it, it ain't going nowhere, right? And to see LeBron James at the end of this, helping his team wind up hosting that trophy, I think it speaks volumes about how we should also look at LeBron James and how we should look at how he sees the NBA and where the NBA is going. I, again, have my trepidations about this tournament. You know what I'm saying? Because I've always been on the record as saying that the NBA needs to stop worrying about all the other major sports leagues and worry about its own in order to put out the best product possible. So with all that being said, me personally, I think you guys are being awfully generous. Do I think that it was successful in hyping up the NBA, the early outset? Yes. You know what I'm saying? If I had to split my grades up, I would give this somewhere around a B or an A on that. But I'm going to give this a D plus, maybe a C. And I'll tell you why. There were 19 teams. There were 19 teams. I'm wilding. But listen where I'm coming from. There were 19 teams that had a 500 or record, had a 500 record or better out of this tournament, right? And we only saw 8 of those teams when it mattered the most. And really, only one or two of those, actually one of those teams, are one of the teams who actually came out with people actually focusing on the potential of what they could be coming towards the end of the year. So teams like the Orlando Magic didn't get any shine. You know what I'm saying? Teams like the 76ers didn't get any shine, right? They got ousted because of the rules, because of how this was all developed. I think that there still could have been opportunity for these teams to still be competing and make this in-season tournament relevant to get it to that end game. So that's all that I'm saying. I feel like if the whole intent was giving opportunities, even for like the San Antonio Spurs were out after the second game, right? And all of the hype behind Victor Wembanyama, the last 2 games he played were absolutely meaningless. He was in the same bracket division as Chet Holmgren, which everyone wants to make this out to be the new rivalry, you know what I'm saying, for the NBA, and that game became meaningless. You see what I'm saying? So I'm just saying that the overall aspect of it, you know what I'm saying? Again, if we're talking about getting the hype, no problem. But to me, my overall opinion, I think we lost out a lot because it took up until the quarterfinals for us to actually care, when there could have been meaningful games that we did want to pay attention to, teams that we did want to see go out there playing each other, and they were already out of the tournament before it even started.
But if a team sucks, they suck. And I mean that with as much respect as I possibly can, right? So I think teams like San Antonio didn't win any games in the tournament, but they're not a good basketball team. Washington didn't win games in the tournament. They're not a good basketball team.
So it's the
Chicago.
So
they're not a good basketball team. No. There's it goes both ways on that side of it.
Yeah, but Shaw, they didn't win any games in the tournament, right? They were 0-4. I'm not talking about them. I'm not talking about the teams that were already bad when they came into the season, were bad when they showed up in the games that they played in the tournament. I'm talking about the teams that actually,
about everybody. They all
I'm
the
only
teams
talking
matter.
But I'm only talking about, you had 19 teams that had a 500 record or better. 8 of those teams participated in the knockout stage. So what happened to the other teams? We didn't get to see
an extended tournament.
So that I was going to say, so if we're talking about like tweaks moving forward, I actually agree with you, Cal. Normally this would be where I would try to chime in and try to, dunk it over the top. No, I agree with you. There can be tweaks moving forward that can continue to expand, like the field. And I honestly think we're going to see that. But in a way, this is the inaugural one. And if you went into it like not even thinking it was worth a damn to begin with, which you admitted, that was the case, it's hard for me to believe that you actually think the ending was a D or maybe a C.
No, I didn't say the ending was a D
because it wasn't perfect.
No, I didn't say the ending, but we saying what was our overall impressions. So even if I give one aspect of it an A and everything else is like D, F, 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 it's not going to average out where he's getting a C. You may get a D plus. You get what I'm saying? I'm just saying the rollout, the hype of it was great. Okay. Mm-hmm. The hype, getting everybody into it. But then when you started seeing it as it was laying out, it only until we got to the end did it start peaking and start getting to that point where you're looking at A, B plus, A. You get what I'm saying? Like the game between the Celtics and the Pacers, awesome game, right? Celtics are 3-1. Pacers had to basically win it out. That was awesome. That was great. But there were other teams there that could have probably posted the same challenge. We could have asked for the same things even through the course of that time frame. And that to me is why I felt was somewhat disappointing. And also the times of how everything was being set up when the games were being played and stuff. I think that was somewhat of a miss as well too, because of the way that they separated everything and spaced everything out.
I'm gonna give you a real fat daddy answer right now. Anybody here that has ever fried, multiple batches of chicken will understand that first batch, you still gonna eat it. You still gonna eat it. It's still gonna get ate.
Yeah.
But it's never going to be as good as the second and the third and the fourth batch, specifically because the grease hasn't been, the grease isn't up to the full level it needs to be.
Funny.
It hasn't been flavored by the previous. All of that stuff. It's the first one.
I go by Goody Mob, baby. I use yesterday's grease.
Hey, you know what? You're doing it the right way.
You know what I'm saying?
Hey, here's the thing. Adam Silver, something tells me he doesn't know about CeeLo's flow. That's all.
I understand that, but listen, man, we're gonna have Sunday fried chicken, man. I gotta have Saturday grease.
Not mad at it.
Don't be
well, let me say this. So I think from that lens, what you're looking for, like we said, is probably an extended version of it to some degree. So whether that's in terms of making it 5 games instead of 4, or whatever it is, including it instead of it being an elite 8, a Sweet 16. And then that way, but then now you have half the league in it. And then I think what they were probably fearful of is just like, what is that, just kind of what does that yield? And are you kind of overdoing it in that first year? But
people could be right. That, Warren, we could be real about it. That would have been the complaint. Oh, we got all these teams in the mix. What makes these guys That's what would have been said. And I'm not saying you, Cal. I'm saying people on the timeline. Because again, I also saw people on the timeline really celebrating it along the way. And then right around Thursday, when it was very clear, oh no, the Lakers are gonna get this. That's when the tones changed. My thing is, it wasn't perfect, but it was still pretty damn good. I think there's enough meat there to build upon.
Yeah, and a Sweet 16 is basically what the playoffs are, right? Isn't it? 8 teams from each conference make the playoffs. So I think in some ways they were trying to minimize that from the very outset, and hence we got just the Elite 8, if you will, too. So utilizing these collegiate terms, but I think overall, tweaks to be made. Silver had mentioned that as much. I've heard him kind of like campaigning kind of throughout. He's like, I don't want to celebrate too early. Let's get to the end, so forth and so forth, because he's learned, he knows. And I think a lot of this is going to be determined on whether and how well your team performed. But I agree with you, CL, in the aspect of Orlando beat the dog crap out of Boston. And so, because Boston beat the dog crap out of a very poor Chicago team at the last end, they get that nod. So from the aspect of like highlighting some of these younger teams and other teams, yeah, that would have been nice to see, but you still kind of want to see your legacy franchises in there as well too, if they can.
And that's all that I'm saying. Like, this was a great opportunity for us to really play up to the next generation, the next team, the foundational teams that I think have an opportunity there with some foundational players. And I think the timing of when those games got released, the timing of how it got to that point, whether those teams are getting in or not getting in, I feel like we were still being robbed of that, because again, it's a very delicate balancing act about what the priorities are for how the NBA wants to display this product, and if the intent is they want to continue to grow its fan base and its outreach. But again, this is another conversation that's going to be had as we as the NBA prioritizes when they want to make those tweaks and those changes, right? But let that not be said that to your point, Jabari, to your point, Shaw, what we got as far as the semifinal matchups and the finals matchups were nothing short of spectacular basketball being played. And I'm glad that it came to those two teams to do it, because clearly you can see the contrast of styles, and we'll get into that in a few moments. But before we do that, if you like using debit over credit, I just learned about something that's definitely a game changer. Discover Cashback Debit. It's a checking account that rewards everyone with cash back on everyday purchases, which means that you can get cash back on tickets for the game, snacks, team merch, all with no fees, making this season a total win. Check out eligibility and terms at discover.com/cashbackdebit. Discover Bank, member FDIC. More Baseline with Cal Lee, Warren Shaw, and our man, Jabari Davis, coming up. We are back. Cal Lee, Warren Shaw. Our man Jabari Davis, Baseline NBA podcast. And before we get into talking about the Indiana Pacers, JD, I think you said that you wanted to kind of follow up or highlight something in reference to the in-season tournament.
Yeah, honestly, the one thing I will say is I think we're all in agreement that, it was good but can be better. But the one thing I will say is for some of the fans that are out there that are poo-pooing it now, if I'm a fan of a mediocre team like the Warriors or something like that, I probably would have wanted them to go ahead and take this tournament more serious since we're not going to be playing it, come June or probably even come May. But that's just me. I apologize. I didn't mean to derail anything.
Shots fired! Hey, wait!
Oi. with all seriousness. So
all disrespect intended.
Hey, hold on. Tilt that cap a little bit down.
Yeah, if I just wanted 4, oh, never mind. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I cannot believe that as Celtics fans, we are advocating this kind of, what I'm saying?
I'm here for the debauchery.
I mean, you know what I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And if I was an Indiana Pacers fan, I definitely wouldn't be coming up the next day talking mess. I'd just be happy about where I got. What's up, Hoop Spaces? What's cracking?
Woo!
All right.
We live for these moments. Hey. All right, so
hey.
let's talk about those Indiana Pacers. Thank you very much, JD. You know what I'm saying?
Good transition.
Like you never left, brother. Like you never left. Okay.
Man, weaving.
So basically, do you buy into who the Indiana Pacers are, what they are capable of, or do you not feel like the Indiana Pacers are yet on that level to run with a very focused Los Angeles Lakers squad?
Oh, I did. I'm sorry. I didn't realize you're asking me. I think the Pacers showed exactly who they were. We three of us know, and everybody that loves basketball knows it's matchups. If they're not facing a dominant big like they were last night, they can, get out and run and honestly run a lot of teams off the court. But when it comes to the postseason, ultimately, I look at what are they going to do against Giannis? What are they going to do against Embiid? What are they going to do? Like in those particular matchups, I don't love it for them, if we're being completely honest. But in terms of showing their growth, I think the Pacers, honestly, I agree with your initial point that they probably benefited most out of this because not only did they get to showcase all of these young, phenomenal athletes that they've got out there, not only did, prior to the championship game, did Haliburton get to showcase like, hey, look, I'm not just coming, I'm here, kind of in the way that Shea did last year and, maybe Ja did a couple years ago. But they also got real in-season, but playoff-like atmosphere play. And I'm not going to say it's the same as the postseason, but we can be straightforward and acknowledge that crowd, that feel, that vibe, that wasn't just a regular, this early December game. So for me, while I don't love them as currently constructed against a dominant big, especially with dominant big on both ends of the court, or that can be dominant on both ends of the court, I do like it in terms of, oh no, they are where they need to be. They're progressing by the end of the season. Maybe they determine they need to get another big in their rotation, specifically for the matchups that they'll hopefully see in the postseason. But in terms of where they are, I think it was great. I am a believer in what Indiana is building. I really do appreciate what Rick Carlisle has been able to, honestly turn this, this group into. I look forward to watching Haliburton and the rest of those guys continue to develop over the rest of the season.
Indiana's in a space here now where we predicted them to kind of be in the right above that playing line, right? So we said they were like a tier 3 team in the Eastern Conference. Didn't quite know the offense would be this fast, this electric. And yes, they have just gone to hell. Matador defense, we'll figure it out. Maybe we'll try to play it situationally. But JD, your point about them adding a big, I think is really, really interesting because I guess that big would have to be somebody, quote unquote, maybe girthy, but is it coming off the bench? Do they move Miles Turner as a result? Turner is the last man standing between the he and Sabonis showdown, and Sabonis was undersized as a big, as we know, as well as he's having his struggles in the Western Conference. So I'm not quite sure where that happens, where it doesn't upset their current chemistry and mix. Now, again, I agree they're not a championship team as currently constructed, but you have to be so careful about when you're tweaking things. I heard they might be sniffing around Pascal Siakam. I don't know if it was Woj reported that or somewhere. So, but that's not a girthy big, right? That's a wing-ish type 4-3-4 type player. So I'm just trying to figure out how exactly they get better in the right way without upsetting the chemistry that they've clearly established. Haliburton's out here already campaigning. Hey, come play with me in Indiana. And maybe that style can be fun, but Indiana is not a traditional destination place in the NBA. So I guess my question to you, and then CL, I'd love to hear your point on it. How would you make this Pacers team bigger? I mean, better and bigger, I guess, if you will. You're trying to get more size in there without upsetting the actual chemistry that currently exists.
I'll be quick about it. Miles Turner has been in trade rumors for 4 years. Like I feel like he's been in the year 5, he's been in the league 5-6 years, and he's been in trade rumors since then. So it's obvious he can play, like under those type of situations.
Sure.
I don't think you move him. I think you keep him, and I think you just explain to him, hey, look, and basically you say, look, we're trying to improve the team. We're not trying to take anything away from you. You got paid this past off season. We're going to continue to, treat you like the franchise cornerstone piece or whatever, that you are. But we are looking to, we are in the empire building game. You know what I'm saying? Like we are not here just to look good and just to be a cute little story. So if we want to get better, do we need to show you the tape of that game against Anthony Davis again? And in that in-season tournament, that's where you go with it. I think you can hit. I don't think there's anybody on that roster that you can be like, oh no, I can't disappoint him outside of Haliburton. But in particular, I think if you explain it in the right way and just say like, hey, look, go out there and keep balling and you will be fine. We're just going to get you some help. I think you'll be okay.
Yeah. So you bring up an excellent point, Jabari. Look, I love Miles Turner. When Miles Turner came into the league, he was supposed to be a defensive presence, and he wound up actually being an offensive, opportunity that the Indiana Pacers leaned on when they were making that initial run some years ago, into the playoffs. And you fast forward to what his careers look like now. I think, you have to start asking the question. Now, I definitely think that Tyrese Haliburton makes Miles Turner a better basketball player. But I think ultimately, if you're talking about this team being a contending basketball team, they got to be able to play defense. So name me one person on that roster right now that can anchor and help that team play better defensively. I think you have a mastermind in Rick Carlisle who can situate them, put them in a position, but it still comes out to the level of execution. I still think there needs to be a defensive captain. So I think to your point, Shaw, I think you bring up an excellent point, because you're going to have to think about what exactly you're going to need in order for that team to be able to compete with the likes of the Los Angeles Lakers. You don't have to worry about that with Anthony Davis. And we'll talk about the Lakers in a little bit about what the keys are going to be for them and what we saw from this in-season tournament that's going to help accentuate the importance of what their season is going to mean down the road because of this. But I think if you're the Indiana Pacers, I think that it's great because they, to me, remind me of what the Sacramento Kings reminded us last year, right? That with athleticism, hustle, you can actually position yourself to be one of the top tier teams in the Eastern Conference. The question becomes, are you going to be good enough when the oppositions have better players, right? And right now, the only player that you can honestly say that might have a one-uppance level is Tyrese Haliburton. Everyone else is pretty much who they are. Either who they are or they're unproven. So it'll be very interesting to see where the prioritization is going to be by the Indiana Pacers, whether it be something more implemented by system, or it's going to be something where you are actually bringing in personnel to help balance out the team to be able to compete against the likes of the Bucks and the Celtics and the Sixers, down the stretch for the remainder of the season.
I think what's going to be, interesting for them too, is because Miles Turner has been in defensive player of the year conversations because he blocks a crap ton of shots, right? But again, can he take the physical, if you will, abuse, if you will, when it comes down to getting posted up and guys trying to really, lay it on him here in the playoff time? Bruce Brown comes with a championship pedigree. He's supposed to be at least an average to better than average defender as well too. They've turned Aaron Nesmith into this kind of wing defender where he's really trying to earn his minutes on that side of the basketball, despite coming into the league as somebody who's supposed to be a 3-point shooter. He's varying degrees of a success, I think, on that aspect. So he's turned to more of the defensive side. So there are some things there, right? There are a couple pieces there that make you say, all right, well, it's possible if they try a little bit harder and put some different schemes into play. But I do agree with you both where ultimately there might need to be some roster decisions that change. But again, I'm so cognizant of you build some goodwill, right? And we're 20 games into the season or whatever it is. So, all right, do you feel like the writing is already on the wall here, or do you let this try to build and simmer because they're just getting started?
But can I say, I want to jump in something real quick, Jabari, and I'll let you hop in. Shaw, the one thing that I saw, especially from watching the game, last night as we're recording this podcast, is the effort that the Pacers put on as far as their hustle, their pace of everything is so offensively motivated. But defensively, they made the Los Angeles Lakers look like freaking Ferraris out on the court. And I'm not saying that the Los Angeles Lakers don't have speed and cannot play at a faster pace, but they aren't the fastest team. They weren't the fastest team coming into that game. Sure. But but the Pacers' transitional defense is god awful, right? So as much as the effort is put into them getting down to the other end of the court to score the basketball, their awareness, their cognizance of recognizing numbers down the floor and other play in the opposition leaking out on them is not nearly as good. And so what I'm saying is I don't know if whether or not it's going to come down to, Rick Carlisle figuring out a way to kind of temper that, as much as you just have guys that just defensively are better well suited to handle when you're playing against teams that would turn your strength into your own weakness with that style of basketball play.
And, honestly, you guys both make excellent points. I just wanted to also piggyback. And while I initially said, get another center, a defensive minded center, or just like another body that can, be viably thrown at folks, their point of attack defense could also use an improvement. They need Bruce Brown to be a disruptor. If you're not going to get positive, like, disruptor minutes out of anybody else, like at the point of attack, then maybe bringing in a guy like Javon Carter, maybe bringing in like a defensive oriented point guard that, and in no way am I saying can mask Haliburton, but alleviate the responsibility of being the disruptor at the point of attack. I honestly think that could also be an answer for him.
There's going to come a point where Tyrese Haliburton is going to understand what it's going to take for him to be in that conversation of being one of the great guards in the game of basketball. Steph Curry had to do it. Dame Lillard had to do it, right? All of them. Devin Booker. At some point, if their defense is their deficiency, there will be a year or two where you'll see them step up their level of being able to play defense. They won't be great, but they'll be good enough if their team is still good enough for them to be more competitive or competing, for titles in that regard.
They need to, I said Javon Carter, they need to go get, honestly, you know who I'm talking about in Chicago. My guy, the former Laker.
Caruso.
You get a Caruso in that mix, you get a Josh.
All the conversation is that the Lakers might be leaning towards trying to pick up DeRozan, right? So yeah, I agree with you. Like, sometimes it doesn't even need to be a major name. It just needs to be a complimentary name that just makes it. Bruce Brown going to the Denver Nuggets. What? That wasn't a significant pickup for the Denver Nuggets on their way to winning the championship last year.
KCP and Bruce Brown played not immaculate, but they played incredible basketball during that stretch. You have to have guys like that in the mix. But no, if Indy could get one of the, any of the type of options that we've been discussing, I think it puts them in a different level.
Final thoughts,
players need to be stars in their proverbial roles. And that doesn't mean you have to come out and score 20 a game and do whatever. It's like, hey, you hit the timely three, you play great defense kind of throughout, and then that can give a team that added boost. A guy like Caruso is being sought after by an immense amount of teams, from Philly all the way down, back over to the West Coast where he originally came from. My final point on it here too, from the Pacers is, they play with the pace, if you will, of the former Phoenix Suns, right? The Steve Nash Phoenix Suns, where it's like, okay, they just killed you with fire, just so much offense. But we saw where that went to. And I think ultimately that's where the Pacers need to understand. And again, just kind of rehammering my former point. Are you cool with the vibes, right? Are you cool with the vibes right now? Kind of this upstart team. hey, we'll get in here, we'll get some playoff experience, hopefully, and see where it shakes out? Or are you trying to accelerate that, right? Like immediately. And that is a very, very hard conversation that they have to look themselves in the mirror and figure out. Because if they get it wrong, all of a sudden you've ruined your vibes and you've ruined any opportunity, in essence, to be, a true playoff contender. And as you're trying to like build that chemistry there. And Haliburton, as good as he is, I think he's a winner. I think he's somebody who wants to win. And averaging 20 and 12 with only 2 turnovers a game or whatever the hell he's doing, like that's only going to go so far because he's gotten his money now. So now at the same team, it's like, all right, he's going to want to see wins and dubs coming up into that Pacers column. So it'll be a great, great conversation kind of throughout the course of the season, see how the Pacers handle this, especially after getting so close to winning the NBA Cup.
No doubt. You're tuned to The Baseline. Callie, Warren Shaw, and our special guest, Jabari Davis, discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. Coming up, we'll be talking about the Los Angeles Lakers, not only just winning the inaugural cup, but are they ready to help us all flip the script on the mentality about them being really one of the best teams, not just in the Western Conference, but ultimately in the NBA? You don't want to miss out on that conversation. But first, are you looking for the ultimate destination for NBA gear? Look no further than the NBA store. With a huge selection of authentic and high-quality products, including jerseys, hats, and accessories, the NBA store has everything you need to show off your team pride. Plus, with exclusive and limited edition items, you can make your collection truly one of a kind. And with an online presence, you can shop anywhere in the world. Don't miss out on the latest trends and experiences. Visit the NBA store today by clicking our affiliate link. If you're listening to us on your favorite audio platform, be sure to check the link in the description of the show. The Baseline is working in affiliation with the NBA store /Fanatics and will be compensated for your patronage by utilizing our link. And as always, we thank you for your support. More Baseline with our special guest, Jabari Davis. Don't go away. All right, we are back. Callie, Warren Shaw, and our special guest, our brother, Mr. Jabari Davis here, joining us here on The Baseline. As we continue our episode, time for us now to talk about the Los Angeles Lakers and what an impressive victory over the Indiana Pacers. They win the inaugural NBA Cup. But I think it also, allows us to have that conversation when you see that type of performance from them. Is there a level of confidence for people to buy into the Los Angeles Lakers as being among one of the top teams in the NBA? Shaw, I'm going to let you start off with this because I know Jabari is going to have some thoughts on this. And obviously, this is predicated on our previous episode where we did, talk shit or abandon ship, where we saw the Los Angeles Lakers when we made our predictions at the beginning of the season and then our quote-unquote interim report, so to speak, on whether or not we want to still hold true to them being as considered a top 1 team in the Western Conference.
So what I loved about the tournament from the Lakers standpoint was the level of competitiveness that they showed kind of throughout, and they absolutely wanted it. And it goes to show when a wily old veteran Hall of Famer like LeBron comes around and he still has the ability to galvanize a roster. And because he wanted it and because he bought in, so did the rest of that team and that organization. So we can make all kinds of innuendo and trope about why he wanted it, to stroke his proverbial ego and all of those things. At the end of the day, the guy's a competitor and you can't disrespect that. And I think what that now does is lead into the Lakers' potential ability as they get healthy to get back to the top of this Western Conference. The one thing we did say in our last episode is that the West is wide open. Right, it continues to be wide open, and the teams that we thought were going to be at the top aren't quite there just yet. So we thought it was going to be Phoenix, Denver, and the Lakers, and right now it's Minnesota and OKC. Hey, that's a bit of a surprise, I think, to this part of the season. What I'm excited about them for the standpoint is that they are getting healthier. While I don't think Gabe Vincent is some sort of a savior of the KCB, he does matter. Jared Vando coming back in, chasing people down like, the Winter Soldier on defense is really something that is really amazing to watch at times. They are going to have to figure out a way to be more efficient offensively because the defense is there. Ham has gotten that down. He's kind of had that locked in from day one, even from last year to some degree. But can they create and manufacture creative offense efficiency without LeBron and AD all the time? The AD we saw in the final game, listen, he doesn't need to be Wilt Chamberlain 40 and 20 every night. But I think the aggressiveness is what you want to see moving forward. And if he can be that in terms of that level of consistency, that gives the Lakers a much better chance to kind of be one of the better teams in the Western Conference. So while I'm still skeptical, because I still think they need to figure out a way to be better offensively, as alluded to, we know they're not going to stand pat. Something's going to happen. Something's going to give one way or the other, and they can get right back into the thick of the hunt in the Western Conference and ultimately for an NBA championship. Jabari, our resident Laker guy here, what were your thoughts and overall outlook for the Lakers here moving forward?
My overall thoughts, and this may surprise you, is it means nothing, but it means everything. But at the same, and two things can be true. It means nothing in terms of the Lakers franchise. Look, they've done a lot of winning. We know this. Like, it does nothing in terms of like legacy. And while yes, it's good for LeBron, and it is dope to be able to say I won the first of this, or maybe even the first and the second, or whatever the case may be of this. It ultimately, look, people are going to feel the way they feel about him. Like look, Jordan versus LeBron debate, that's over, because the people that are always going to be about Jordan, they're always going to be about Jordan. And the people that are always going to be about LeBron, okay, he gets one of these, he puts this nice little, this $5 bill on a stack of money. That's great. You know what I'm saying? But it means everything in terms of if and always if, is an iffy thing. But if they can play at this level defensively, well, we are cooking with gasoline. The roster heading into the year, I looked at it and I said, look, this is the best and most complete a Lakers roster has been since the 2020 year. You surround the two big dogs with guys that will, and I think it was you, Shaw, just a minute ago, that said guys that will win the battle in their role, that will embrace and not just embrace, but really look to, to do whatever they can to contribute. You surround those two main guys with guys that are willing to accept a role, and you are cooking with hot grease. Ultimately, to your point, no, we don't need Anthony Davis to score 40 and 20 every single night, but what we do need is that level of intensity and that level of aggression. But what I will also say is anybody that watches Anthony Davis on a regular basis, he does give effort almost every night. And here's the thing. Sometimes people can be so biased when it comes to a player that anytime there's anything negative happens, is, oh, see, that's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah. When in reality, that's like 1 out of 10 games. And Anthony Davis is one of those guys that no matter what, that's kind of where it's always going to be. On the defensive end, he gives it every single night. And when he's got some soldiers with him, you get generational output. If the Lakers are healthy, I think they're going to be right there by the end of this thing. I do think that there can be some moves made along the margins in order to solidify certain things, and specifically, kind of like what I was saying about Indiana, specifically to target different matchups that will be coming up in the postseason. The ultimate answer, no matter what, is still you're going to have to deal with that big Jokic guy. So I don't think we're finished there. But in terms of what it does for them, what it does for me as a Lakers fan, it tells me, okay, no, we are still there as long as everybody's healthy. But the same can be said for everybody, really. If Jamal Murray's out, is Denver, as great as they can be? No. If Devin Booker or Bradley Beal, yeah, he's a guy that's still, for anybody that has forgotten, he is still on that roster. If he's out or if they are tweaked or whatever, are they? No. So as long as guys are relatively healthy heading in, I feel damn good about this Lakers squad. Honestly, much better than I did even heading in.
Yeah, so it's interesting, Jabari. When I looked at this tournament, I wondered if whether or not this was going to be an opportunity for teams to tinker and try or implement new aspects of who they may be, who they might become. Maybe we'll get a glimpse of those things. But I am very much glad, right? And I don't like giving a ton of Laker praise. You know that. If it is, it's off the record button's off, bro. Okay. But I am glad that the Lakers stuck to who they are.
Yeah.
Because what you're seeing, what a lot of other teams are doing is really, really doubling down on how offensively gifted they're going to need to be. And a lot less teams really solidifying how defensively they have to be if the whole conversation's about winning a championship. So if you're the Los Angeles Lakers, you've been prided behind the fact that you've improved your defense year over end since Darvin Ham has been the head coach. And you have to feel good about that. There are a lot of teams right now that while they have some great offensive players, they are still searching for their defense. And what got them championships, and we'll allude to like teams like you called out earlier in the show, Jabari, like the Golden State Warriors. The one aspect of what got them to that championship was the fact that they play defense. Like as much as they're offensively gifted, their inability to stop teams and their inability to stop themselves from giving teams opportunities to beat them is what wholeheartedly does them in. For the Lakers, it just comes down to, will their players be healthy enough to hold over in a 7-game series? And when it matters the most, will their best players step up and outplay whoever the opposition is? We're yet to see if whether or not this iteration of the Lakers, being Anthony Davis, LeBron James, and all of the surrounding parts, are going to collectively as a team be better than the Denver Nuggets or collectively be better than a team as the Phoenix Suns. But you have to feel good that they actually exhibited this style of play when it mattered in a situation this early in the season. So we know it's in there. It's just a question of when we get to the finish line, can they go out there and execute that? I can feel more reliant that they can turn a team like the Indiana Pacers, who are probably going to wind up being a top 3 offensive team by season's end, unless they gas themselves out, that the Lakers have the blueprint of stopping a team like that. And you got a lot of teams in the Western Conference that operate in the same mode as the Indiana Pacers. They just don't have as many thoroughbreds, maybe. But they may have some better players than what the Indiana Pacers currently have, with the exception of Tyrese Haliburton. So when I see that the Lakers can actually hone in on doing what I think is going to get them where they need to be and do it damn well better than everyone else, that is a scary proposition and a scary thought. But I'm like Shaw. I'm a little cautious on this. The question being, can it be sustainable? Can it be sustainable? Because we still need to see the rest of those supplemental parts to help alleviate the burden on their top players from having to do this on a night in, night out basis, because the Western Conference is only going to get tougher.
Let me tap in here, Jabari, because a couple of things I want to even clear up. So I think even from Anthony Davis' lens, right? I think anybody who's paying attention knows he gives it every night defensively. And you know what I was saying, that level of consistency, it really is the offensive aggression that needs to be there, or you would hope would be there. And even if it's a matter of, you know, making the pass out of the double team and then reposting and kind of getting it back so you can get better positioning, those are the type of things you just kind of want to see consistently. I think CL disagreed with me the last time I said it. I think they've gotten a pretty decent season out of D'Angelo Russell. You know, and while, you know, he's not the savior in any capacity, I think he's been pretty solid. But to hear now that they are interested in not only a guy like Caruso, which obviously, again, we said a lot of teams could utilize, but they would sniff around Zach LaVine or DeRozan. All right, and they're trying to bring a third star back into that. Or not, shouldn't say they're trying to. Rumors are that they're at least investigating the opportunity, right? Where are you on that aspect? Understanding everything we just said up to this point in the show, guys be stars in the role. Just let AD and do what they need to do and cook and make everybody and elevate everybody better. But do you feel like they need more than what D'Angelo Russell and even Austin Reeves, to a lesser degree, is giving them? Because Reeves in any Chicago deal probably has to go if you get back, you know, one of those two main guys in DeRozan or LaVine. So where are you at in terms of the third star aspect of the Lakers?
Where I'm at is I wouldn't give up both D'Lo and Reeves. If it was one of them, I understand like at least the thought on it. But the truth of the matter is, I feel like we've gone down this road already. Look, I recognize that Zach LaVine in a third role is incredible. Sure. 100% on paper, that looks incredible. But these are human beings. And also, if you want, you know, to the point that you just made, you know, like within the question, if you have to gut your situation and you have to lose too many pieces, like if you're doing a 3-for-1 type deal, while yes, on paper, that still looks great. It still looks damn good. Look, you know, that looks like, oh man, we all know the games aren't played on paper. And we all know that at some point in mid-May, or excuse me, in mid, February or, you know, January, whatever the case may be, you're going to have to rely upon the depth. You're going to have to. I don't know. I'm not saying that means AD is going to be out or LeBron's going to be out. But what I am saying is at a certain point, you're going to have to rely upon the depth that you've done such a good job of compiling. And I just don't know that it would be in their best interest, especially if they're staying with the pack along the way, to gut themselves for a LaVine. Now, if he's on the team, obviously, I'm going to be as cautiously optimistic as I can be. But if you're asking me if I'm in favor of that at this stage, no, I'm not. The team is 14-9. They're right in the middle of the pack. They're, I think 4th, 5th. They're right within striking distance of the, of the top of the conference. I don't think you have to make a move of quite of that magnitude with the risks that go along with it when you're still within striking distance.
Shaw, you bring up a very interesting point, and I am still, I'm not saying I'm hating D'Angelo Russell. I'm saying that I just don't know whether or not what D'Angelo Russell brings to the table for the Lakers and their offensive identity is going to hold water against the better teams that have players that know how to play with better pace, that can bring it down, bring it up, bring it down, bring it up. I think ultimately you're going to have to rely on LeBron James to be that person to do that, which then makes D'Angelo Russell somewhat obsolete unless he is shooting the 3 ball at a very high percentage, which he typically doesn't, right? So something's got to give there. You know what I'm saying? Because even if you give up Russell for, say, an Alex Caruso knows how to play with LeBron. You know what I'm saying? Like Caruso knows how to play how LeBron wants that team to play. And I think that would actually marry better. And he's also a defensive bulldog, right? I feel like all of these teams, Shaw, every single one of them who do these trade deadline trades are looking for that unicorn trade. They're looking for that trade that we look on paper and say, yeah, that's going to put on, but that's not what happens, right? Not since Chris Paul going to OKC has there been any kind of trade move, or no, that's too far back. I want to say the Kawhi trade, right? Has anything been done that has made that level of an impact where that's going to put the team over the top? It really comes down to where your foundational pieces are. And you figuring out well before then that what you have should be good enough to get you to the NBA finals, right? So if I'm a betting person, unless you're getting something to completely shore up what is significantly lacking for you to be able to deal with the likes of the Denver Nuggets and the Phoenix Suns and veteran-laden teams that are together from the beginning of the year to the outset of the year, minus maybe the Minnesota Timberwolves, because they still have yet to prove something until they get to the playoffs. Until you do that, I think you would be doing yourself a disservice if you're the Lakers, trying to make a big-name trade splash, so to speak, that you think is going to get you over the top for something that you clearly have the pieces to do it. It's just a question of, is the mentality or the implementation of how you're doing it need to change as you get closer to the end of the year?
Well, I think they know that they can't make the same mistakes, right? Whether or not you viewed Russ as a 3rd star, I think that's how it was viewed going in, and it just didn't pan out. So they've already been once been, right? So that's why I find it so interesting that the rumors are even kind of swirling, just because they didn't get off to the start they wanted to, but that's because maybe people weren't healthy and still aren't completely there, right? So to me, it's hard to assess completely because they want to see what they look like when everybody gets back. That said, it's nice to be able to have the salary of a D'Angelo Russell or an Austin Reeves or a Rui Hachimura that you can utilize if you absolutely wanted to make one of those types of moves without completely gutting, because I don't think it's going to take 2 or 3 of those guys, even from a salary standpoint, to kind of get to where you need to get to. You can create trade exemptions, et cetera, to kind of make things work. So that's where I'm at on it. I'm going to kick it to you, Jabari, and I'm going to, want to finish this point too, but also want to kind of ask you this one last thing about even from the LeBron standpoint, because even listening to, I think it was Mike Breen in the in-season tournament finale, LeBron is even more focused now, ironically, because of a real life incident with Bronny. And like he's looking at his own mortality and basketball mortality in a different and a unique way. How do you see that potentially playing into the Lakers' vision for the end of the season, in addition to any roster moves they might kind of try to tweak up with before the season ends?
I think that's an excellent point. And I'm glad you brought it up, and I appreciate it. I think you're going to see desperation mode Bron, but not stupid Bron. You know what I mean? By desperation mode is he recognizes from a basketball standpoint, from just an overall, nothing is guaranteed. And the older we get, like I think we can all agree, we realize that. Maybe y'all understood that in your 20s. I did not. Maybe y'all understood that in your 30s. I did not. It took me to get to my 40s when I realized, like, oh, wait, you mean this? Nothing even tomorrow, let alone today? Like, So I think if the opportunity to strike is there, I could see the organization, going out and doing it, but not putting themselves in a terrible spot and not mortgaging like all of the future in order to do it. But also just to follow up on, what we've been discussing, if I'm being honest with you, I would prefer for them to just simply be smoke screening with the big deal in order to get Caruso. Like, if you need to engage in talks for Levine and DeRozan, and then ultimately come back and say, well, you know what, we're not willing to give that up. What about just a straight up situation for Caruso? Do that, because I actually think that would help them more than anything. Again, solidifying what you got, addressing, to your point, Cal, addressing the specific weaknesses, and not just addressing like, oh, it sure would sound good to have the go with what you need, get it. And honestly, to tie everything back together, and to your point, Cal, I do not think they need to swing for the fences. This is a title team as is, as long as they can, be relatively healthy. Just tweak around the margins, address the exact weakness that you have, and don't fall in love with, like the poster of Raquel Welch. You know what? You got Raquel Welch at the house. We got McDonald's at the house. You don't need to go out there and swing for the fences.
I got a quick question before we, before we end our shows here, JD. With regards to Anthony Davis, I want to strip away what happened, what we saw from last night, because I think we can both agree on the Indiana Pacers did not have an answer for the likes of an Anthony Davis. However, I am curious about what version of Anthony Davis would you like to see more of? Do you want to see half-court version Anthony Davis, or would you like to see more up-tempo, moving up and down the court Anthony Davis? Because when I go back to the last year's playoffs, I felt there was less of opportunities for Anthony Davis to really outplay Jokic, because it was more immobilization and staying with Jokic more so than Davis flipping the script and forcing Jokic to keep up with Anthony Davis.
I would like to see it be situational more than, honestly, more than, and I'm not just, I'm not dodging, like there are times where you want to take advantage of the matchup, like last night, but Anthony Davis was blowing right past Miles Turner,
right,
blowing past him, outworking him.
And it goes to Shaw's point earlier about seeing that offensive aggressiveness, that I want the damn basketball. Give me the damn basketball. Stop messing around. Give it to me right now. I'll take care of the rest. Mentality.
Yeah, and again, like if you watch Anthony Davis on a regular basis, I'm telling you, he is calling for it on more often than not. Sometimes they get it to him, sometimes they don't, and he gets frustrated. And there are times where he gets frustrated, and you can see him check out in the fourth quarter of offenses of games offensively when he recognizes it's just not going to be his night. I would like to see that stop, but that, what, honestly, it's kind of like when people used to say, like, man, if Shaq just made it, what, Shaq was pretty damn good as he was, and it is what it is. I would like to see that stop, but as long as I get defensive-minded, destroyer of all worlds in every single scenario, as well as at least engaged offensively, that's what I want. That's what
World Breaker Davis. That's what you
want. What he did to that boy, what he did to that boy, Triple J in that series was brutal. What he did to the Golden State Warriors, we're gonna bring y'all back up. He laid them out, and it was literally. They changed their starting lineup 4 times in a 6-game series, y'all. I'm just saying, I need that. And as long as you're engaged on the offensive end, I'm fine.
All right, man. JD, final thoughts. You know what I'm saying? And where is everybody going to be able to catch you? I'm sure they would love to catch you on here on the regular. Not that we weren't throwing out the invite or nothing, but I'm just saying, if they can't catch you on here, where can they catch you, brother?
I appreciate, look, I always appreciate the invitation, and I'll tell you right now, I would love to be on more in the second half of this year, like over the course of the season. So you let me know, and I will make it happen, to the best of my ability. Talking basketball with y'all is some of the most fun stuff I can possibly do. That said, I do have some stuff in the works. I cannot, and when I say this, what it means. I can't discuss it as of yet, but within the next couple of weeks, I will have something. Some updates for y'all. In the meantime, Mad Boosties is a very fun NBA show. Look, I'm not going to claim that, it is, the level of analysis and breakdown that you're going to get from an NBA baseline. I'm not going to say that. But what I will say is you'll have some laughs. You'll have a good time. You'll get some folks clowning a little bit. So if you like that style, You like the NBA Twitter, pettiness, style, and you like folks that just love the game of basketball, you might want to give it a shot.
Well said,
Sean,
my brother.
thoughts, Sean,
Yeah, well said. Well said. I can't, as JD alluded to, make sure you check out Matt Boosie. Those guys, Miles and Jack, they are amazing. And super producer Jabari Davis, but also super analyst when he's here on the baseline here with us, man. So I'm excited to have you on here. And again, man, we'd love to bring you back. Maybe make you, at least maybe once a month type of situation. Anyway, we'll talk offline. We'll see what's good. But on the flip side of it, to our fans and listeners, hope you enjoyed this one, man. A lot of great conversation here about the in-season tournament. Two really good teams in the NBA right now, the Indiana Pacers and the Los Angeles Lakers. And we'll see where things start to fall out here too, as the post in-season tournament fallout here now coming up here in this next week. Get back to, I guess, air quotes, regular basketball. Christmas Day games coming up here in a little bit as well too. So the NBA is in a very, very good space. Overall, great conversation, man, and always great to be here with you fellas, man.
Absolutely. Once again, we'd like to thank you and yours for jumping on for the baseline, Callie Warrenshaw, and our special guest, Mr. Jabari Davis. We appreciate each and every single one of you guys, and we'll catch up with you next time.